Most brands are still buying attention. Brooke Stites is building a company that argues the future belongs to brands that show up as storytellers and not advertisers, and by making things people are choosing to watch. In an AI-saturated landscape, the volume problem is only getting worse. CMOs who keep defaulting to interruption-based media are spending more to reach audiences who are increasingly skilled at tuning them out. The brands finding traction are the ones rethinking this model entirely. Brooke Stites is the co-founder and CEO of Modern Arts, a brand entertainment agency named to Fast Company's most innovative companies list. She previously led global accounts at Wieden & Kennedy and TBW's Media Arts Lab. In this episode, Brooke breaks down what it means for a brand to be a part of culture rather than interrupting it, how Modern Arts structures work so the brand is never a product placement but the essential catalyst of the story, and what she thinks most CMOs are getting wrong about the difference between brand content and branded entertainment. I'm Brianna Lawler. This is a CMO Club podcast. Love to hear who you are and what you do. Yeah, or is yours?
Yeah, wonderful. My name is Brooke Stites. I am the CEO of Modern Arts, which is a brand entertainment agency I founded with my partners, Zach Ryder and Adam Groves. So we are an agency and a studio in one.
Yeah.
And really focus on, with the brands that we work with, creating original entertainment. So like original IP that's in the form of docs, films, series, real life experiences, stuff that you end up seeing on most of the major streamers, but from a brand.
What's fascinating about that angle is you're creating something that people get really bought into. You're naturally creating a fandom, provided you do it well.
Right.
I'm sure there's a bit of a formula to make this happen, but what have you found in your experience has led to some successes in creating these original products?
I think what we're actually doing is not generating a fan base, but tapping into a fan base. And I think that's where a key to success is certainly tapping into a fandom and really giving that audience more of what they want. And then I think you end up, creating fans around the content that you've created or the experience that you've created, but really it is because you're tapping into a fandom that already exists and really giving them something of value, adding to their life.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so both appreciated and welcomed. And then you get the brand and the content that you've created to be a part of, they're inviting you in.
Yeah.
And it's a part of the world that they already are in and love.
Mm-hmm. And then it becomes a part of culture.
Right.
Too, which is huge.
Yeah.
And it's one thing you shared yesterday during your session is how if you can find what people are passionate about, it's sort of like that's kind of gold. From there,
Totally.
endless opportunities. But the how, the why behind finding that passion, how have you been successful in that?
Well, I think all brands talk about being in culture. And the reality is very infrequently are you getting into culture via an ad. And I think there's moments in the calendar like Super Bowl where ads are a part of culture,
Sure.
but that is a moment. It is really about tapping into the fandom and then really understanding your audience so deeply.
Yes.
Where they are, who they are, what they're consuming, what do they love to watch, what are their true passions, and then adding to that. And that's where I think you are then invited in to be a part of culture versus trying to live alongside it.
Yeah. How do you navigate that when you're working with a brand that has a specific MO in mind and to your audience or the audience that would be in their demographic? How do you navigate that with them when they have a predetermined idea and you're maybe the experts in what the audience needs or how it should be shaped?
Well, I think that every brand has an MO, as they should. I think that's their job.
Sure.
Is to have an MO. I think it's then our job to figure out how that MO either fits into their audience's life in a way that feels genuine and authentic and truly a part of, their world versus trying to insert ourselves into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's pretty delicate too, because people are inundated with messaging. They want authenticity. You had mentioned yesterday also there's a search for realness.
Yeah.
And I think we're really good at filtering out what doesn't feel real anymore. But I imagine there's some challenges there because you need to serve a mission and then people want one thing. And I feel like it's a balancing act. And so you have something you need to deliver on. And there's this creative component. There's just so many moving parts.
And again, I do think it always comes back to being audience first.
Yes.
That does get into them really responding well to human stories.
True.
responding well to like something that is real, getting a peek behind the curtain of how things work or who someone is, and again, but that all gets back to what's the human element, and I think that's what people are really responding to, and I think we'll continue to see even more in this AI world. We like to say we are learning to, or have learned to, identify what's real versus not, and I think that actually is getting pretty hard.
Yes.
I think we'll be like a craving almost for the receipts of what's real, and so that you do in fact know this was created by humans, or the story behind it. And that's how you and I connect.
Yes.
Just on a human basis. It's how brands can connect with their audience of like really like what's the human relationship there.
Yeah. And I think also the messaging is going to change depending on who that audience is, because what will serve Gen Alpha is going to be different than Gen Z, than millennials, than boomers. And so you have this movement towards just give it to me straight from Gen Z and maybe Gen
Alpha for sure.
And how do you navigate that? Like you're showing up, you're being honest, but what does that look like in comparison to how we've traditionally done it?
Well, I think it's always been hard truly to target everyone,
of course.
And especially when you're trying to be audience first, right, and make something for a very specific audience, it is about specificity. Something that works with Gen Alpha is definitely not going to work with millennials, but then you also have to realize, especially now in this case of like the millennials are their kids are the Gen Alphas. So often there is something that you're making the parents and kids are going to watch together.
True.
There's a lot of brands that do it well, that kind of give a wink to parents. I think Lego does a great job of it in terms of their humor. It's a lot of humor that like speaks to adults. That goes right over kids' heads, but the kids enjoy it just as much. And so I think that you can reach a wide audience. It's just, again, the specificity of who in fact you're trying to talk to.
And it really seems like it's centering on inviting someone in, a family in, into a shared experience.
Definitely.
It's not this singular one touch point and done. It's almost like you're now a part of our story. We're a part of your story. It's this mutual reciprocity that's happening as a result of what you create.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious, does AI even have a place in the work that you're doing as far as maybe understanding your audience or developing a sense of patterns or synthesizing information? Or are you really just doubling down on the creative aspect and we're not, venturing that direction?
No, we definitely, every headline will tell you, like, you have to embrace it or get left behind. There's so much positives, about AI in terms of it being a true tool for us. It is a great tool to be able to understand the audience better, deeper. We use it throughout our process, I would say. And I think it'll continue to evolve of how it gets utilized at every step. Right. But right now we really, I think, appreciate it and lean on it as a tool in the toolbox to make us smarter about the audience. And it's bound to evolve by the time, even by the time this is live, it'll be something different. And that's what we make of it.
Yeah, it's true. And you can take pieces that work for you and your team and knowing, what the outcomes are you still want to arrive at.
Right.
And leave the rest. It's not necessary to become sort of this funnel for all information about AI. You just take the pieces that work for you.
That's it. Key to AI is really recognizing that it is a very powerful tool.
Yes.
How does it work for you and your process? I think we find smart ways to use it throughout, honestly. And it is about understanding your audience, where they are,
faster than you could have once before.
before.
So then there's this other component that AI is allowing people to create more volume, more output faster. And obviously your audience is really keen on quality. How are you navigating the balance between speed, experimentation, and quality? And if you had to pick one of those themes for the rest of this year, or sort of your vision for modern arts in the foreseeable future, which one would you lean on?
I think for me and for modern arts, quality is always going to reign. And I think craft, both of story and the actual output of it, is so critical.
Yes.
In terms of when we speak to what's really going to break through, what's really going to resonate. And that, I think, really what helps you stand out and stay at eye level with entertainment properties versus ads is, in fact, craft and quality. So I think quality is always going to be number one. I think experimentation is important too. Social channels are a great place, and even different avenues into the channels are different ways to like be experimental and also let your audience feel involved themselves and create. And so like it is, I think the experimental layer leads into the realness piece too. It's not perfect. It is in fact something that you want to be able to create something too that's so engaging that maybe the audience pulls it apart and remakes it and shares it out themselves. So like I think experimentation is in fact a lot of engagement. Like I would see that as a way to engage your audience.
That's a really savvy angle. And I'm curious to hear, is sort of from a success story standpoint, do you have anything you can point to where maybe there was an experimental lens that you approached the project with, and there was something you put out there that quality was at the center of it that you can speak to, that you're really proud of, that your team's been able to share in the last little while?
Sometimes we honestly build things. So that I have something in my head right now of a series that we're in development on, where we're very specifically creating some social extensions to it so that it feels much more of the YouTube Shorts language and TikTok language, so that it can be essentially, it's sticky enough that people want to take those pieces and do something with it themselves. And so it's like kind of inviting experimentation in terms of what we're actually putting out around the very well-crafted content. It is like, what's the, I call it buffet of shorts.
Yes.
That we can put around it that really invite that experimentation and engagement. And something else that we did a couple years ago now was we did this digital manga series in China with HP. And what was interesting about that is we had worked with a screenwriter of Love, Death, and Robots. He wrote the first volume. We were able to make that very quickly, put it out in the world. And then kind of not even to our prompting, a lot of the fans, again, we were tapping deep into a gaming fandom. Like we were going after hardcore gamers who loved Love, Death, and Robots. So we worked with the writer of Love, Death, and Robots to write a manga series for this very specific niche audience. We released the first volume. They just went crazy for it, to a point of taking it themselves and guessing like what was going to come next.
Excellent.
And really wanting to be a part of the conversation. So then we took one of those suggestions, fed that into Phil, the writer, and that was what the second volume was based on. See, it ended up being pretty experimental. And on that one, we didn't even necessarily set out for that to be the case, but because, I guess there's experimental and speed. That AI was able to spit out the next volume very quickly. Leaning into an AI-backed platform, creative platform. We were able to get that second version out very quickly in response to
it's amazing.
What one of the fans had suggested.
And I just saw sort of a total effect in the best of ways. Totally. I imagine your team had a hand in the Kimi Antonelli series. And I wonder, like, this has a massive following. And it's an incredible story. I feel like it's relatable for a lot of folks, parents, siblings.
Totally.
18-year-olds everywhere. So can you speak to that a little bit about, how that came to light, and now in hindsight, what the experience has been like for you and your team in sharing the world?
Well, I am such a Kimi Antonelli fan. I have to say he's as wonderful as he seems on screen. Kimi obviously is having such a huge run. Has a huge name. He's dominating the podium. Absolutely incredible. But as of last year, when we first started that project, no one knew who Kimi was.
No.
And when Lewis Hamilton stepped down from the Mercedes F1 team, the sports world was shocked. And Mercedes had decided to really make a bet on Kimi. And pull up this then very unknown rookie. In to replace a legend's seat. So from a Mercedes F1 team, they're like, we need and want people to fall in love with Kimi. WhatsApp has such a huge role in this story. Because when Lewis stepped down, the whole team went into an absolute frenzy, but like very confidential conversation. The team was like, actually didn't know what they were going to do. And as it turns out, all those conversations, like their boardroom was on WhatsApp. That's where all those conversations happened of like what they were going to do and who they were considering and the back and forth about Kimi.
Oh, wow.
And then when they actually even decided that it was going to be Kimi, they called him on WhatsApp. It was like a group WhatsApp call. So it's this beautiful, authentic story for the brand that if WhatsApp wasn't a part of it, that story doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so that gets back to really like tapping into the fandom also, and that they just want to know more about the team, about the drivers. Drive to Survive did such an incredible job driving interest for F1. Like,
Entirely new market segment.
absolutely wild, the success of the brand and that entire sport.
Yes.
And a big part of that is Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
And so what we were able to do is tell an even deeper story than what you saw in Drive to Survive.
Yeah.
And so when we had the film finished, it made so much sense for it to go on Netflix.
Yes.
Because it was, again, adding to the F1 Drive to Survive fans, like cues. Yeah. So as soon as they were done with the latest Drive to Survive season, they were fed the seat.
Right.
And again, they just devoured it. It was super successful for the Mercedes team, for WhatsApp. And it really was, again, like tapping into an existing fandom and just giving more of what they love and more of what they want.
Yeah. What a great case study, and how to leverage that feedback from your audience and then make something really powerful out of it.
Well, and what's amazing about it is it's a true testament to creating original IP from a brand. So this is something now that film continues to compound value for WhatsApp and Mercedes and Kimi, frankly. So every time he's on that podium, that film becomes irrelevant again, and it's in people's queues again. There was a part of us that knew that as we were shooting it. It was just like, this is such a special time capsule that we're capturing here, because he didn't even have a driver's license, his street driver's license yet. He hadn't finished high school. Like, his life, it was on the precipice of his life changing so dramatically. And like, we were there all the way up until like the moment of his first race. And we're able to capture that. And I think we knew that even at the time of like, this film will continue to have relevance his entire career.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's capturing this moment in time that's never going to happen again.
No.
It was like before he was shoved out on the big stage. And by God, has he shown up on that big stage.
And it's just incredible. It's storytelling at the center.
Totally.
People are buying into this. Yeah. It's an incredible experience to be a part of as a viewer, as someone watching this unfold in real time.
Totally.
I imagine you've got other brands who have come to you and said, can you do this for us? And I mean, hey, this is not like you can't cut and paste.
It's a little lightning in a bottle for sure. I think that its continued success is also with Kimi's continued success. So we're cheering for him every week. But I do think that sport and profile of athletes is in like such a rich territory.
Totally.
Because again, it goes back to very human stories. We can't AI that. And I do think that like we have some really exciting sports moments here coming up with the World Cup, the Women's World Cup next year, and with the Olympics. People just want to know more about the athletes that they love, and the sports that they love. And so I think we do a lot in that space, because it is where, one, there's a lot of eyeballs, but it's also where there's like some very, very deep passion.
True. Yeah, and there's a lot of heroes, right?
A lot of heroes.
The viewers get to be the hero as part of the story as well.
And want to feel a part of their hero's world.
Yeah.
And so the more they know about them, the closer they feel, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, no, there's some incredible parallels. There's been sort of serving, branding, marketing, showing up, putting story at the center of your efforts.
Totally.
And I think Modern Arts is doing it so well. And I thank you for sharing just a little glimpse into how you did it and kind of what you've found success into. And I hope that continues.
Well, thank you.
Is there anything that you might suggest to brands that maybe aren't exactly as in the same realm that you are, but what they should focus on that has served you and your team really well? Kind of in the era of AI taking over maybe some things that are a bit more bespoke. What would you say? Lean into this. It served us well.
I think it is about being audience first, deliberate and intentional about where you show up and how, so that it's not just about being everywhere, but really, I think, having a clear voice and story that translates across formats, then being very respectful of how their audience consumes and behaves in those channels, so that it is something that adds value to their feeds, to their cues.
Yes.
There's so much coming at people in terms of like there's so much content to consume, and in this AI world there's going to be even more content to consume. Again, I think it's different by generation, but the conversation is still the same about time is precious and it is such a commodity. The different generations understand that in a different way.
True.
But it is all the same. And so it is an understanding of where do you spend your time?
Yes.
And like, what are you willing to give your time to? And that needs to be top notch.
Yeah, your conviction must be so strong.
Totally.
So evident, though. It's just clear as day.
Right. And are you speaking to them eye level?
Yeah.
And a part of their world versus trying to ram yourself into it?
No, that's really savvy. You sort of take a step back and then think about how can I serve you?
How am I adding value versus spouting stats at you?
Yes. And over a long-term relationship too. Thank you, Brooke.
Yes,
So
thank
that's a really good sentiment. I think a lot of people will find value in that.
Yep.
But it's been a pleasure speaking.
Such
to
a
you.
pleasure. Thank you for having
Thank you
me.
for taking the time.
Yes.